Regina, Lewvan.
Mr. Speaker, since Budget Day, the NDP has been pushing to have all parts of Alberta and Saskatchewan included in extended EI benefits. More recently, even the Conservatives who cut EI have joined our push for fairness. Yesterday, it was revealed that according to the government's own formula, Edmonton and southern Saskatchewan should be included. Why hasn't the government made extended EI benefits available to all laid-off workers in Alberta and Saskatchewan?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Employment.
Mr. Speaker, as my colleague had noted, certainly any sharp, sustained jump in EI numbers in a particular region, the changes have been made, and we were quick and decisive in the 12 regions. Certainly with the new numbers, the spike created by the forest fires in Fort McMurray have again changed those numbers. They are being analyzed, but I'll encourage my member across, stay tuned.
The honourable member for Regina, Lewvan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The collapse of commodities has led to layoffs in resource industries. Statistics Canada's latest labour force survey indicates that over the past year, the number of unemployed Saskatchewan workers jumped by 49%, by far the largest increase of any province. Statistics Canada's latest employment insurance figures indicate that claims have increased more in Saskatchewan than in any other province over the past year. It also indicates that fewer than half of unemployed workers in Saskatchewan and across Canada are receiving EI benefits. That is the result of previous Conservative and Liberal governments cutting benefits and draining the EI fund. Mr. Speaker, we need to ensure that workers who paid into EI have access to decent benefits and help struggling Saskatchewan families. That's why the first issue I raised in question period after being elected was improved EI for laid-off resource workers. I'm proud that the NDP used one of our 3 opposition days after the election to propose protecting the EI fund to finance increased access based on a national entrance requirement of 360 insurable hours. Despite campaigning to fix EI and having previously promised an entrance requirement of 360 hours, the Liberals voted against this motion. Despite presenting themselves as the champions of the oil and gas sector, Conservatives also voted against improved EI for laid-off resource workers. Mr. Speaker, that was a couple of weeks before the budget. In the budget, we got an extension of EI benefits supposedly for areas hit hard by the collapse of oil prices. But the measure left out Edmonton, Regina, and southern Saskatchewan, where most of our province's oil patch is located. I asked about this exclusion in the first question period after the budget. The only thing stranger than the lack of response from the Liberals was the silence from Conservatives. Not a single Conservative MP from Edmonton or southern Saskatchewan stood up to ask why their constituents were excluded. Then, 10 days after the budget, the member for Regina Quapel sent out a press release belatedly questioning the exclusion. But this past Friday, the member for Saskatoon Grasswood stood up in question period and declared, "EI is not the solution," end quote. Mr. Speaker, we can all agree that EI is not the ultimate solution. In the long run, we must build an economy in which meaningful and gainful employment is available to everyone that wants it. But right now, Saskatchewan families need all of our elected representatives speaking with one voice to have all parts of our province included in the EI extension. When Saskatchewan Conservatives declare EI is not the solution, it undermines our efforts and it undermines our province. Mr. Speaker, I implore the government to ignore the dissonance on EI from the Conservatives. The government should listen to the NDP, But more importantly, it should listen to the evidence and apply extended EI right across Saskatchewan.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Employment, Workforce Development and Labour.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I appreciate the question from my colleague from Regina, Lewvan. And, you know, I just returned from the conference. The Canada Building Trades are hosting a conference in town this week, and I had an opportunity to speak with a number of trade unionists, building trades representatives from Saskatchewan, Alberta, and obviously there's a great deal of concern around you know what's taken place in the commodities with the commodities downturn. Spoke with a couple of guys from Fort McMurray. Kevin Thomas, a buddy of mine who represents the operating engineers, lost his home in Abasans, and you know certainly the situation there is one that not exclusive to the ministry. All members of this House and all Canadians are very concerned about. So, but specifically with Southern Saskatchewan, Mr. Speaker, and the question goes to what's going on with Southern Saskatchewan. The minister has been in Southern Saskatchewan recently, had an opportunity to speak with workers, employers, you know, labor leaders with regard to the EI rates. Certainly, as my colleague had referred to, the most recent numbers that have been published, they show the national numbers have been fairly steady. The Saskatchewan numbers, there has been an increase, 0.1% increase in unemployment in Saskatchewan. Specifically in Southern Saskatchewan, you know, there are a number of concerns. Most of the jobs, just as you get into some of the information, most of the jobs that have been lost have been part-time jobs, and I know my colleague would know that. Saskatchewan still remains below the national average, and you know, I don't want to dismiss the comments that he had referred to. You know, we want to see the workers in this country back to work, and certainly that's what this government is focused on. But we know that you know the employment insurance program has to be there for workers who find themselves without employment through no fault of their own. And but you know, my colleague did make comment about you know what was talked about in the platform and what was delivered in the budget. But we did, in fact, as a government, we came forward with $2.5 billion worth of investment in the EI program that I know that all people from Saskatchewan, all workers in Saskatchewan will benefit from, going from 2 weeks waiting period to 1 week, working while on claim provisions, you know, the provisions around work sharing. Those are all very important investments that this government has made. But if I could assure the member that the most recent statistics, the numbers that have recently come out, that they're being assessed by the department, and I look forward to working with them going forward. Thank you, Mr.